Welcome to The Other Side of the Desk, a social work podcast. My name is Laura Schroeder, and I'm with the Professional Excellence Program in Georgia State University's School of Social Work, and a partnership with the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services. I'll be your host, and we'll be asking our guests in each episode what the phrase "the other side of the desk" may mean to them. For some, it may describe the complex nature of the work they do on a daily basis. And for families and youth, we'll lean in to hear their stories and what it means when someone takes time to meet them where they are. In each episode, we'll work to better determine what real engagement of families looks like, why it's so important, and how it can transform the life of individuals and families who long to be seen from the other side of the desk. So today we have two guests with us. We have Elizabeth Coert, who works with the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services as a social services specialist. And a unique set of circumstances brought her into contact with a mom, Gretchen Sherman. Gretchen's a mother of three who utilized the services at DFACS, and through the help Elizabeth gave, was really able to become her own advocate. Elizabeth and Gretchen, welcome. We're so happy to have you both here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today we're going to touch on some topics and we're going to hear some stories, but we really do want to focus on behavior changes and what can be done to ensure that a client can really be the leader in their own life, how they can really write their own story, if you will. And from my understanding, Elizabeth, your relationship started with Gretchen by simply answering the phone one day.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit, give us a little background?
I had just started working in the DFACS office in Hall County, and then one day the phone rang in my office, and I answered it. And then on the other line, it was Gretchen, and she was just asking for a little bit of assistance, a little bit of help to find out who her case manager was, what she needed to do so she can get her children in the rehab program that she was at. I was like, I'm not exactly sure, but let me see what I can find out, and I'll call you back. And from there, it grew into this beautiful relationship that we have now.
Gretchen, what was do you have memories of that day? Do you have specific memories of kind of where you were and what your experience with that phone call was?
I guess like at that point I was desperate and I had been calling like all these different numbers. I had been blowing up like several different numbers just trying to find out what I needed to do to have my children, that I've never been separated from my kids before. So I just wanted to know what was the steps that I needed to take to get my kids up there with me. And I know that when I called that number, I had called it maybe about 3 times already. And then finally this lady answered. It was Elizabeth. And I was like, ma'am, I'm trying to get in contact with my DFACS worker. And it just went from there. I had put my feelings to the side, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to just, because I could have been like real rude and stuff. But I just was like, I'm just going to put all my feelings and everything to the side and just respect the person on the phone and talk to them like I've known them forever. So
you mentioned, and the word that kind of stood out in that moment that day is you really felt desperate. Can you talk a little bit about what did that feel like? What was happening at that time?
When I say desperate, I was already like, my kids was with these people that I absolutely had no idea who they was. And I had never been away from my children since any one of them had been born. So when I say desperate, it was just like it was a sad feeling. I just wanted instant gratification on something. Like I wanted someone to tell me exactly what was going on. So when I say desperate, I wanted to know exactly what I needed to do and what was being done at that point.
So you really wanted some details, right?
Yeah.
So we all know in this field and in this work that it's complicated work, right? So Elizabeth, can you talk a little bit, and as you're thinking particularly, obviously, about this relationship you began to build, in that day, did you sense that desperation, and how did you engage from the beginning of this relationship?
Honestly, at our first conversation, I did not sense the desperation. When she called, she was very polite, very nice. She was like, okay, this is what I'm calling for. This is what I need. I need help with figuring out how I can get my kids here. She was very detailed in all of the things that she was expecting she needed. She needed from us as a department to assist her rehab. She had a whole plan. I was like, okay. It seems like this was a well thought out plan in the time. She just needed the right person to help her execute her plan. So I went and I started investigating for her so I could connect her to that person that could assist her.
So Gretchen, did you feel when you kind of had that first engagement with Elizabeth, was there something that you sensed from her, or was it more like she felt like you heard her? Tell us a little bit more about how that relationship started.
Well, I remember sitting right there, and I had a roommate, and when she answered the phone, I was already like real happy. I was like, oh my God, okay, somebody answered the phone. So when I got off the phone with her, I told my roommate, I was like, look, I think this lady gonna help me, because this was my first experience with defects ever. So I didn't know really what to expect. I had like heard stories from like other girls that was in the rehab about like, oh, they're not gonna do anything. They tell you something, it doesn't go through. So when I got off the phone with her, I was telling my roommate, I was like, look, I think this lady gonna help me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wrote down everything that she said. I wrote down I already had written down what I was gonna say anyways. So I was like, I think she's really going to help me. And I just remember just feeling that ease come up. Like, it was like a sense of ease that I felt when I hung up the phone with her, that I just felt like I was accomplishing something. And she gave me that feeling that, okay, I got you. I'm going to help you.
So you really, from that moment, there was something about that you had confidence that she was going to follow through.
Yes.
Do you know why you felt that? Did she say something in particular that you think gave you that confidence?
I can't really recall anything particular that was said. It just might have been like just the ear just listening, and I guess not talking as much and just listening to what I had to say. And even when I finished, because I probably said this long story, I'm sure I did, because I write, and I probably just told her everything that happened from the day they took them to right now. So it was just the letting me vent and get everything out that I wanted to say. And I think it was just that listening ear of not like interrupting me while I was talking, and actually like engaging in like, okay, you said this happened. It was her like asking questions about everything that I was saying. And it just gave me that ease that like, okay, she's listening to me. If you listen to me, I know I got you.
So how, as a client, and this was your first experience, how important is it to feel like you're heard?
I feel like when you're in that situation and you're desperate just for answers, just someone to listen to you and to hear your side of the story, it makes the situation a lot better. I'm not saying that you have to agree with everything that I'm saying. You might not even believe half the stuff that I'm saying, but even just sitting there listening to me vent and listening to the situation, I just feel like it'll make any situation better. Like, just listen, someone just opening up, just listening to you.
So we've titled this podcast "The Other Side of the Desk." So obviously y'all weren't at a desk, right? But in a way, she was at a desk, right? Elizabeth was at a desk. I'd love to hear from each of you about what does the other side of the desk, did that play into how this relationship started?
I think it did. I think our relationship really started, because I didn't have any expectations of Gretchen. I didn't come in with any preconceived notions. I didn't have a background story given me of her. I just came in and she said, gave me her whole story and said, this is what it is and this is what I need help with. I said, okay, so let me help you with figuring out how you can figure out this situation and get your kids back to you. So I didn't come in with any biases or any thoughts prior to meeting her. It was simply, this is how I'm presenting. So I took her at face value and I said, okay, let's start there.
So the beauty of this relationship is that she wasn't a case. You didn't have a case plan in front of you. You didn't have any notes. You didn't have shines.
No. Well, I did have shines.
You did have shines.
I did have access to her case, but she wasn't on my caseload. So I was kind of like her independent third party in the situation at the time that I met her. So I was like, let me just help connect these dots so you can get what it is you need, because I clearly am not the person, but being that I work here, let me help behind the scenes and say, all right, who is this person? Okay, if you can't tell me who the person is, let me see what I can do for her on my part and represent or give her the information that she needs that she's not able to get from anybody because she can't get in contact with anybody.
So Gretchen, can you, let's dive into you guys developed a relationship which has been ongoing for how long now?
Almost like 2.5 years.
So Gretchen, you started in a desperate place. Once that initial, so let's go past that initial conversation. She heard you first, right? Can you tell a little bit about what happened next?
She told me that she was gonna get information for me. I asked her, is there a number that I can call her back on? Because I had been calling this number and no one ever answered. She gave me her cell phone, like her work cell phone number. She gave me, I probably called her back 1,000 times before she even probably found all the information out that she needed. But every time that I called her back, she either, if she didn't answer, she called me back. So that's how it started, like, picking up. And then it just went from there.
Did you have preconceived ideas about what, I know you mentioned this was the first time that you ever had any DFACS involvement. Did you have an idea of what you thought DFACS's role was?
Well, from my understanding, I had this story that other people had helped me build this story that, okay, DFACS, they're here to take your kids and they want you to do all this other stuff to get your kids back, and then they never still want to give your kids back. It's always something. They ask you to do one thing, and it's 1,000 more things that you have to do after you do that one thing. So it's really like your kid's going to be in the system forever, and they're going to just keep loading stuff up for you to do. So I had this, like, sense, like, oh, my God, like, I'm dealing with the devil right now. These people are the devil. And that's how it was presented to me from a lot of people, that, oh, they're just going to keep just piling stuff up on you and you're never going to get your kids back. So
if you had an audience of moms who were in the position you were in, what would you like them to know about this experience for that has become different for you, right? The story's been different for you.
Well, like, what I would say to other moms is I can't make any promises to anyone, but what I know, that I came in there with a sense of desperation, and I put in my head that whatever they asked me to do, I was going to do exactly that. Whatever I needed to do, I was going to do exactly that. And I was going to make a plan. And everything that they asked me to do, I was going to do it, no questions asked, even if I didn't agree with it. And I'm the type of person who, I have an opinion about everything. And if you ask me to do something, you're going to explain to me why I have to do it. And I cannot tell everyone that's how smooth it goes. It just went like that for me. But I know that when I came into, like, the situation with DFACS, first I was never rude to my caseworker. and whatever she asked me to do, I did it. And I just made it my business to do whatever I needed to do for my kids. So I feel like when you, in a sense, the desperation, and when you really have your mind made up on something, then you're going to do it. And it's going to be stuff that get in your way. It's going to irritate you. But as long as you stay on that right path and you have, like, you limit your distractions, then I feel like that there you can get your kids back in a matterable time limit.
Did you feel how much a part of that plan? You talked about a plan. How much of a part of that plan did Elizabeth help you to develop?
Well, after she told me who my caseworker was, I still stayed in contact with her. It was just that first phone call that I had with her that she listened. So I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of my friend now. I've never saw this lady, but this is my friend now.
I was her plug.
And I was like, I'm gonna, like, anytime I need something, or even it even came to where, like, I didn't like the rehab, so I had, like, problems at the rehab. So even when I had, like, problems, I would call her and she would tell me, like, okay, no, just take a break, So I feel like with my plan, that whatever the defects worker wanted me to do, she helped me 100% do what I needed to do, even though it's some stuff I call her and I was like, why do I have to do that? And she'll just be like, Gretchen, just do it. And I feel like that helped me to not be so disobedient, because I had the choice and I had the option to be disobedient and unruly, and probably wouldn't have got my kids back as quick as I could have. So I feel like she walked me through it 100%.
So she was like your side coach, kind of, right?
Yeah.
I kind of looked at her like, my mom had just passed away earlier that year. So I kind of felt like it was like a sense of my mother, like that piece that I was missing from my mom that would tell me, like, no, you're, like, wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wouldn't agree with everything that I was saying. Like, if I was wrong, I was wrong. Even though I would call her and make it sound so good, she would still tell me, no, you're wrong. You sound crazy right now.
You trusted her, though, right?
I did.
Why do you think that was? Had you still hadn't even seen her face to face yet, had you?
No.
Nope.
What was it? Can you explain what was there that just, there might not be words for that, but
it was just that everything that she said, she did. Everything that I asked, she didn't do everything that I asked, but the important things that I really needed her to do at that time, she did. And that meant more to me than anything in the world, because everything important that I asked her that I really needed done, she did. Now, some things like, oh, I'm going to call you back in an hour. She might not call me back in an hour. But when it came to, like, things that I really needed done, she did for me. So it just, like, went from there.
When we talk about engagement, there's a lot of ways people complicate that. But Elizabeth, can you just address what is showing up? What does showing up mean to a client?
So in this particular instance, when Gretchen, I did get her to the person that she needed to be with, and she felt like she was being asked to do things that she just couldn't wrap her mind around or couldn't understand, because she may have not agreed with it or been in her feelings at the time about it and was like, I just don't want to do it. I was like, so if I remove A and B, then what's the real issue for you not being able to do it? Because you're giving me things that could be taken care of, but you're adding them on as a reason to not being able to do it. So now that I took those away, so what's the real reason? And there wasn't a reason other than she just didn't want to do it, and she couldn't tell me, I just don't want to do it. She can't tell that to me. I was like, so now why you can't do it? Because I did those two things. So if I'm doing those two things for you, why can't you do this for you? And I had that level of expectation for her. So I'm like, okay, so if you need to find a job and you need help with clothes, here's your help with clothes. Now why you can't get a job? Oh, okay. I'll see you there tomorrow.
Gretchen, can you talk about some of those? You know, you mentioned it. You mentioned that she did what you asked her to do. She showed up when she said she was going to show up. How did that impact your moving towards your goals?
It helped me. It impacted me a lot. Like for instance, when I went into rehab, I had a Section 8 house, and by me going into rehab and not like being able to like get because my house had just burnt down, and I had to like stay in contact with my caseworker for my housing, and I was shameful and I didn't know what to call and say. I asked her if she could call for me, and she called, and when she called me back, she told me that they were willing to work with me until I graduated the rehab, and I wouldn't have to like worry about housing for me, because that was like another thing, like, oh, I'm gonna be homeless with my kids when I get out. So that was like one step that she helped me with, where she didn't have to call, but she did it. And then like for another instance is like I couldn't like buy shoes for work, and I was like, I'm just gonna leave the rehab because I'm not gonna be here and I can't do all these different things for myself. And she was like, what if I send you the money? And I was like, okay. But I still didn't want to work at McDonald's, but I knew that she did the hard part for me. So I had to take the job and better myself. So I feel like that impacted me a lot. It was just different situations like that where she like would take the hard part and give me the easy part, and not like, she knew I was just being stubborn at that time. Like I just wanted to do everything my way. So she wouldn't let me do everything my way.
I know in a conversation that I've had before with Elizabeth, we talked about what motivates you and what motivates not just you, but any client in walking through those steps. So there's obstacles, right? Can you talk about the obstacles? And you guys have been talking about breaking that down kind of into baby steps. But for an audience of people that are learning how to be a better caseworker, how to maybe come out from behind the desk to the other side of the desk, what would you want a case manager to know about you on that other side? What was happening that you felt like Elizabeth needed to know? Obviously, you shared some of those things, but what do case managers need to know is happening on the other side of the desk?
I just feel like as a caseworker, like even just looking at your client, everybody makes mistakes. Life is up and down sometimes, and at that time you have someone on the other side of your desk who is broken, who is probably lost, who probably been hurt, and they're at a point where they're desperate, and the love that they have for their kids is not as much love as they have for their self. So, in what I'm saying is that if you take yourself out, that okay, so I'm trying to see how I can put it, but like sometimes you have to be able to come out. Okay, you're the caseworker, but if you just come out of that suit and you think about yourself being over there, it could just be that everything is okay, or everything is going to be okay, or I will help you. Those words right there, I feel like it would make a person ease a lot more than versus saying, okay, this is this, I need you to do this, 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 this. Rather than you just coming out and saying, okay, what can I help you do? Like, what do you know? Is there anything that you need broken down that you don't understand? And I just feel like if a caseworker was more, not, you don't have to be personal with all your clients, but just that, what can I help you do? Or what do you not understand? Or how would you like to do it? Then I feel like it would make that person more eased about the whole situation.
You started with something that I think was key to that, and that was being heard, right? How important do you feel like that first step of someone hearing your story and where you are, is that absolutely the first step? Do you think that's a first step?
I feel like that is the absolute first step, is just hearing your client, or just listening, just being that ear right then. Just whatever notes that you have, just put that to the side and just listen. And then y'all go from there. I feel like it will make everything a lot different, because, you're going to have all these court documents of all these allegations of what was said or how it was put. And it's always going to be different than the actual situation 9 times out of 10. I can't say for everybody, but the wording is going to be worded so bad that if you just listen to that person and you go and, a person can tell you anything. You could just listen and it could be all lies. But if you just listen to that person, I promise you that how they come at you is going to be a lot different.
That's where you open the door, yeah, to what's really happening, right, for you. There's a quote I heard one time, and it was, "I am more than my case file." It really resonated with me. Elizabeth, can you talk about that, maybe in relationship to Gretchen, but also to the work that you do with families? When that person on the other side of the desk, when you do have a case file, maybe in one situation, you didn't at the moment with Gretchen, but how do you balance that? The work that you have to do, there are boxes you have to check. There are tasks that have to be done. There are certain things, but where do you start with that, and can you talk a little bit about your work in that way?
Well, the way that I like to approach my cases when I get new ones is, yes, you have, for the most part, your transfer staffings where you get all of the background information from the case. You look over the information from what's documented regarding court orders or things that have been done. But my first home visit, foster parents, birth parents, everybody, okay, how did we get here? What happened in the beginning? You tell me the story. That way, if anything is missed, you can fill it in for me, and we're starting from your version of what happened and your perspective of what happened and going from there as to what needs to be done now. And I think that helps give people a platform where they can express what they feel has happened and what their interpretation of what has happened, what needs to be done. They can articulate that, and then you can try to meet them where they feel that they are, as opposed to me telling you where you are.
And documentation is a big part of casework, right? So let's say for you, Gretchen, like your first encounter with you've got a caseworker that you did eventually have that connection with, that you had to do that piece of it, but you also had Elizabeth. Let's say in a 3-week period of time, how different was the documentation from week 1 to week 3 in your progression, and how would you describe the importance of what Elizabeth just talked about, and that is hearing the story or hearing where a client is in that moment? Do you have to do that with every encounter? How important is that? Tell me where you are today. Is that something you would say?
No, I say I asked them, how did we get here?
That at the start of when you're
in my first encounter.
In your first encounter,
how did we get to this place where?
So what about like the encounter? Like I'm thinking about Gretchen. So you had that first encounter. You really were heard by Elizabeth, and then let's say 3 to 4 weeks later, how important it is to check in with where that story is now. Was your story different 4 weeks in?
It was.
Did you feel desperate?
Well, like, it's kind of hard because my situation was, I want to say, not the typical.
Very unique.
It wasn't the typical. I think 3 to 4 weeks in, I had my kids. So, but when I finally got in contact with my actual defects worker, I was able to talk to her on the phone. I pretty much talked to her just like how I talked to Elizabeth, and she was like, "Oh, I'm coming to see you tomorrow." So she came and saw me at the rehab, and when we sat down and we talked, I mean, she had her court papers and everything, and she was like, "No, we're going to court." So it kind of like moved, like it was, I have my documents, but now I'm actually like meeting you, talking to you, sitting with you, and I'm moving for you now and your kids. So it was just kind of different. I guess like I got blessed with Elizabeth and a good caseworker who eventually, like, I think she quit like the day after my court, or something. I don't really know exactly how it went, but I got blessed with it. So it's just I really don't know like how it went, like 3 to 4 weeks. Like I really can't remember exactly how that went.
I think you're bringing up something that's really important, and that is in your motivation for your own growth and change and everything that goes along with that for where you were at the time, even your motivation in rehab, how important was it for you to see things moving as quickly, at least in that moment, as they could be? How did that affect your motivation?
It boosted it. It made me more motivated to do what I needed to do.
The communication that takes place, obviously, between a caseworker and a client is everything, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Communication is key, because if there is a lack of communication, a lot of things can get missed, a lot of things can get assumed, a lot of things can be drawn out if they didn't need to be. But if we have regular communications like, "Hey, I'm doing XYZ, just wanted to let you know," going forward, you don't have to now 3-4 weeks later go back and ask update on what you've been doing for the last however long time, because I already had it, because you told me you switched jobs. So now I don't have to say, "What? When did you switch? Why? What happened?" We don't have to keep going back, because I am updated or informed when things happen. So it's more of a, "Are you still there? Good. How is that going? Just send me a picture of your case plan, a picture of your pay stubs. That way I can have it documented." Or if there was something that changed within your situation, I'm like, "Hold on, wait. This is what I need you to do before you continue going down this road." So we're not 4 or 5 weeks out and now I'm like, "No, you got to go back and do this," and then restart it because you didn't do it right. It's easier to be addressed, and you're able to have that open dialogue as to what's going on in the moment. And if things need to be corrected, you can, or if they are going good, you have that up-to-date information. You're not always going back, "Oh, when did you change? 3 months ago? Oh my God. Tell me everything you did from those 3 months until now." We don't have to keep doing that, going back. We know up to date, and it's just getting an update, and it's a lot easier and more productive because we're like, okay, we're on the same page with things. We don't have to keep going backwards. So it just makes the conversation a lot easier.
So let's talk a little bit. Well, we've been talking about a lot here, but I really would love for you guys maybe to talk a little bit more candidly about your relationship. So we talk about behavior change. We talked about that at the beginning. Mm-hmm. The first time that we talked to Elizabeth, she talked about that, which is behavior change is what they're needing to see, right? This is where you were sitting at that time. The division was asking you to do some things, right? To change some things. Can y'all talk about kind of what that looked like? And it may have been humorous at times. Y'all can talk about that with each other.
So the Gretchen I met on that phone is not the same Gretchen that is sitting here next to me by far. She has come a long way. And there was a lot of long, difficult conversations that we had that honestly got her to this point. Initially, I would feel that Gretchen has great abilities to talk. She can convince anybody anything, whether it was true or not, but you would never know that in the moment. So with learning that about her, I learned what to ask her. I learned to have her slow down. Explain that to me a little bit better. How are you going to do that? I asked those hard questions that you were able to see the little holes in her story that she didn't totally think through or needed to stop and address in the moment. And also, I learned that Gretchen was very impulsive. So with that being a big issue for her, because in the moment you don't really think things fully through, that's when you tend to get yourself in trouble. We were able to have those conversations. This is what I'm about to do. I need you to talk me off of this ledge because this is how I'm feeling. And once she was able to get her feelings out, we were able to have that conversation with, does that make sense? What is your goal here? Is that action going to help you get to your goal, or is that action going to further put you back from where you want to be? But we have to get out of the feelings first. So allowing her that ability to call me in those moments when she wanted to just jump off the ledge and just listen to her. And I'm like, okay, are you done? Okay, so this is what I heard. What is it you're trying to do with this? And have her think about it herself and say, okay, is what you're doing going to get you there? No. So what are we doing it for? Because, where are we trying to go? Redirecting that conversation. I feel like I was able to help her make decisions for herself without telling her what to do, but just guiding her. Is that where we want to go? So then why are we doing it? Because in the moment you're going to feel good, but in the long run, is that going to get you closer? Then what's the point? Or, I totally hear you, but the way you're going about this is not going to get your point across. So I think you need to rethink that, because I can hear her as a friend, but then I also can say, well, when you speak, this is what I hear. And then she's like, well, I never thought about it like that. And I gave her that different perspective where she was able to adjust her emotions, adjust her thought process, and adjust her actions to be more appropriate. Didn't always work, but more appropriate to getting her closer to what she needed.
So Gretchen, so she sees a different person sitting here.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like a different person?
I do. I really do. She helped me like learn how to control my like anger, my feelings, and not be so impulsive. Did I always listen? When I did call her, the situation always played out the right way. When I didn't call her, I would get myself in all this mess and have to call her and like, how do I get out of this mess? Like I don't built this big old hole from calling people and doing just absurd stuff. Now I need you to help me get back out of this hole that I hope I don't build a hole again, which I did maybe a couple of times. And then I will always have to come back to her and just be like, okay, so I just said this, did this, and she would never like point fingers. Like she would tell me like, why did you do that? Like, what was you thinking? Why didn't you call me? And I'm like, oh my God, but she never like criticized me or made me feel like I was just so like crazy, or like she just would like basically make me feel like I made the wrong decision. Like, you're not making the best decision as an adult and as a parent. And that's what I like the most. Like, she never like criticized me as a person. She just would like make me look at like, okay, that's not the best decision as a parent first. And that's not the best decision as an adult second. So I like that about her. Like, she will always just make me look at, okay, you got to take care of yourself and you got to take care of your kids. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of your kids. And I just like that about like the whole, like I like the whole relationship that we had built.
There's a saying, and it's not coming to me, but it has to do with not criticizing the person, but challenging the action. That's not the saying. But y'all know what I'm saying,
But
right?
it's addressing the behavior. It's addressing the behavior and finding out the cause of it.
And not what really stood out from what you said to me was that she might have been challenging and critiquing a decision that you made, but you never felt criticized as a person.
No.
Because I feel like our relationship, I knew her well enough to know that her intentions were never ill will or never bad. She's just impulsive, so she doesn't think about the full picture in the moment. So I never felt like she was doing it to be malicious because I knew her, but we needed to think about that a little bit more. Did you think about that? Why didn't you call me? Because I didn't want you to tell me no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, so how did that get you? Where are we now? Did that work out for you? Because I know. But I feel like for her, I never had to say, this is what you need to do. This is what you don't need to do. She knew what she needed to do. She just needed to calm down and have a level mind so she can come to that conclusion. Gretchen doesn't do well with giving directions. If you tell her to go left, she's going to go right just because you told her to go left. Whether that was the right way or not, she would walk around 5 blocks before she say you were right and I should have went left. Knowing that about her, I'm not telling you what to do, but is that going to get you where you want to go?
You said something really key, and from a mom and from a client's perspective, being on the other side of the desk, what percentage and what part of the time do you feel most of the time that you knew what you should do? She said you knew what you needed to do. It wasn't like she needed to tell you that. Do you think that's the way most moms feel?
Mm-hmm. And like even looking at her as a mom, I also looked at her like, you have those friends who are gonna agree with everything that you say, even if you call your friend and be like, oh, I'm about to go and do this to my boyfriend, and they're 99.9% gonna hang up the phone and be like, she's crazy. Like, that is the stupidest choice. But they're not gonna be that friend to tell you like, okay, no, don't do that. They're just gonna boost you up and agree with everything that you're saying on the phone because they're being a good friend in their words, in their eyes. But it's those friends that you need that is gonna listen, but they're gonna also call you out on your wrong. So it was just like I had cut off all my old friends, and I had this one friend that I never saw before, just talked to on the phone, that she probably don't even know she's my friend, but I'm her friend. And it was just like that friend that I would call and I wouldn't sugarcoat. Like, it had came to a point where I would stop like sugarcoating it to her and trying to make it sound good, that I would just call and be like, okay, this what happened, this what I did, this what I said, this what I'm about to do. And she wouldn't tell me not to do it. She would just break down everything that I just said to her and let me make my own decision of how I was gonna do it, or even if I was still gonna do it. And 9 times out of 10, I wouldn't do it. And if I still did do it, it never played out how I needed it to play out. It always went like, okay, those were not my intentions.
How did that work out for you?
This went out like I really like thought I was about to get like, okay, I needed it to go this way, and it went totally different. And she would just be like, okay, I told you so. You know what I'm saying? But she would still like let me see sometimes. Like, she would already tell me how it's gonna play out, and I still would be like, okay, she don't know what she's talking about. Like, this is how it's about to play out, and it would play out totally how she told me. And then she'll just be like, okay, I told you. So now what do we have to do to fix this problem that you just caused? And I like that about her too, because even when I would make the wrong decision and I would like stir up this whole big old mess, she would let me stir up. She would already told me how it was going to go. She let me stir up the whole mess. Now she would help me pin and make goals of how I was going to fix this mess that I stirred up. Like, she never like stopped like helping me or like cut me off because I stir up a whole lot of chaos. She would just like let me figure out how to fix the chaos. And then it eventually came to where I was like, okay, I'm tired of fixing chaos. Like, okay, let me just listen now. Like, I haven't always been a listener, but okay, maybe if I just listen to this lady and not do what she say, but do it how she tell, like go about it how she tell me to do it, then eventually I'm not gonna be keep putting myself in the same situation. And that's how it started from the first day that I met her to now. Because I first while I'm chaotic. I'm very chaotic. Oh, this girl is probably the most chaotic person I've ever met in Georgia since I've been here. She's gonna stir up a whole hurricane, and now I have to help her fix it. But it came to a point where I got tired, but she let me get tired. So now it's like, okay, I don't want a chaotic life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want everything at ease. Like, I'll stir up some chaos every now and then. I have to call her and be like, okay, this is what I just did. Why did you say? And she would say, why you didn't call me, or why you didn't say it? Like, it just turned into like a whole big different relationship.
There's a lot of parenting in that too, right? So case manager sometimes, and can be a good parent, being a good voice, knowing how to let the person almost have a place to kind of bounce up against. Like, you're testing her, and then you come to the point where you're like, I don't really want this anymore. So I want to go back to the idea, and I don't think we think like this in the work that we do with families and children, that the families and children already know, the mothers already know what they need to be doing, right? That wasn't the issue. Knowing what you needed to do wasn't the issue. Can you think about, maybe people that might be listening to this are people who are case managers, or maybe they're new, they're learning how to do the work. Can you talk about how should a case manager approach a mom with the idea in mind that they already know what they need?
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
So obviously, when you first came into this relationship, you described the word as desperate, right? Mm-hmm. While you felt desperate, you knew what you needed. There were certain things you knew you needed to do. If a case manager is coming to, let's say, a mom or a dad or a family, and there's chaos happening, what is the most important role that you think in that initial visit that a case manager should have with a parent? What do they need to know first? That was kind of loaded. That was very loaded, actually. So let me break it down to this. What do you most, and I think you answered this earlier by being heard, what did you most want in the moment for Elizabeth to know on that first day?
Well, like, I think this is what you're asking me. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. But like, when I first meet a caseworker, what is it that they need to know about the client?
No, not what they need to know. How they need to approach you. How do they need to approach you if what's true is that you kind of already know what you need?
I guess, like, for me, it would be, let me make my mistakes, but correct me of my mistakes.
That's hard to come from somebody you don't trust yet, right?
It is. It's very hard.
So let's talk about trust then. How did they establish that trust?
By doing exactly what you say that you're going to do. And I know that's like kind of hard because situations do change. Documents. I'm sure that like things change as like when you're a defects worker, you might have a client do this, and then y'all might have like a training or something, and now it's a total new document that you have to do now. So I guess just trying like doing exactly what you say that you're gonna do. Like if you say, okay, I need you to do this by 1 month. And if they do that by 1 month, then just keeping up with your side of like, okay, now this is what you have now. But I just feel like just like I don't know.
Um, I think probably you said some of this at the very beginning, and that was you had, even if you were reading it, you read, and she sat there and listened. She didn't interrupt you when you were reading where you were in that desperate moment, what you wanted, what you needed her to do, what you needed somebody to do. How important do you think that it is that a caseworker understand your story in that moment?
I feel like it was very important because, like I said earlier, the way that a court document or the intake and everything is, it always, like for my instances, it made my kids look like they came in there ragged, and I'm like, no, I like it just made all like the whole situation seem worser than what actually was actually going on at that point. So I just feel like just listening and just building your notes, not just off of the notes that you have right here, but building your own notes and kind of colliding them together and realizing like, okay, this is similar. Like, okay, she told me this. Let me read this in this court paper, because they're gonna collide some kind of way. But it's just taking your notes that you have yourself, that you've actually listened and like, okay, she told me this, and then I have this, and picking out the importance out of both of them and building that plan from their side and the court side, so that you're still doing your job that you have to do, but you're also being there to help the parent reunificate with their kids also. So I just feel like you still have to do your job as the employer of the state, but you also is on this side where you have this parent who's desperate, who you know that when you have a child and you love, and even by far, I feel like if a parent is communicating with you and taking those measurements to do what they have to do as a child, so it's something that, okay, this parent really loves this child, or either this parent is trying to get this child back to kill him. Either way. So I feel like if you take your notes and what you have to do, and you build like like the notes based off of both of them, then I feel like that relationship, and it would even make your job easier, because now y'all both have an understanding, and not only am I just looking at what these people said about you, I'm looking at what you said about yourself also. Because like, for instance, with me, when I read over my court papers, I figured out like, okay, even though I felt like some of the stuff in the documents was like worded wrong or absolutely wrong, it made me look at like, what was I not doing as a parent that I needed to do that wouldn't have made it so complicated to get my kids back. And that's when I realized that like, just by me sitting and reading what someone else said about me, it sparked the light bulb to what I wasn't doing that I needed to do as a parent. And that's when I came to the thing, like to the conclusion where I made my own notes, and I was like, okay, so if my kids need to be at a doctor's appointment every year, why was they not at that appointment every year? What was I doing as a parent that I couldn't take my kids to the doctor? So when this situation came up, their notes wouldn't have sounded so harsh and so bad if I would have been doing my part as a parent.
So this is like case management training 101 about documentation, right?
Yeah, but also with just piggybacking off of what Gretchen said, listening to them and going off of your information you have from the files and office and caseload, you get a fuller picture of their life and not just a snapshot of their worst moment ever. You can hear when things were actually going good.
The
or
exceptions.
If there was times where it was going good, or how the progression to this point where I needed to come into your house happened. You have a bigger sense of what's going on in their whole life as opposed to just one moment.
And I think too, even when we look at solution-based casework as the model that we work with families and children, one of the things that's brought up are the exceptions, right? Mm-hmm. So there's documentation about what happened, but part of what I'm hearing you say is, what was motivating that? It wasn't just an action. There was something else happening there, right? So how do we get to that? How as a mom, what would you encourage a case manager to do when they're talking to a mom to find out those details that sometimes we don't really hear about?
Well, for me, I was angry. I was so angry. I was depressed. I was stressed. But for me, it was to get to that point where I'm not pointing fingers like you was wrong. And I feel like that's like the most important thing as a client or as a parent, because it's something that you had to do to even be put in this situation. So when you stop putting the blame on everybody else and you come to figure out what did you do wrong and what can you do to correct your wrongs, it won't make you so angry at the person who's just doing their job, because they're not the person who took your child. It's something that you did, and when you come to that conclusion and you're not pointing fingers and blaming everybody else and making up excuses about why this happened or how it happened, then that's when the honesty comes in, and that's when you build that relationship and that trust with the caseworker, and that's when everything is gonna work out. Because as long as you come angry, like, oh my God, you got my kids, and like you feel like they owe you something, then it's always gonna be chaos, and you're always gonna feel like, I'm never gonna get my kids back. But you feel like they owe you something, and I feel like as a caseworker, they don't owe us anything. They're just doing their job. So why are we blaming them, and why are we angry with them about something that we did to ourselves? So that's how I came to like how I was able to handle my situation. It was just stop blaming everybody else and just reading my court papers and realizing what I did as a parent that was wrong. And okay, look, this is what I did. I can't change what I did. I don't know why I did it that way, but this is what I can do moving forward. And it's just building that plan and that goal with your caseworkers, so that not only can you get your kids back, but you can be a better parent when you do get your kids back.
And anger was where you were, right? So how does a caseworker, and that's where they come to, right? Any mother, I'm a mother,
right?
Someone's taken my kids from me. You can't find me any more angry than that, no matter what the circumstances would be. How does a caseworker help to dispel the anger and then move towards the solution? What's a step that a caseworker should take?
I guess it's just really just sitting down and, I feel like an introduction is everything. So maybe just giving me, not telling me everything about yourself, but just giving me a little information about why you do the work that you do. How did you come about doing this work? Where are you at right now? If you do have kids, and just introducing yourself and saying, okay, look, now you introduce yourself and you tell me a little bit about yourself, and then y'all come and you have your allegations of what's going on, and you listen to what their part is, and you build your notes or however that you may do that, and then y'all sit down and y'all go over this plan together. And there, if you have any questions, you ask me questions now. If I have any questions, I ask you questions. Here's my number. I may not answer the phone for you all the time. I'm a very busy person. You're not the only person on my caseload. I have other people that I have to tend to. So if I don't call you back, I will eventually call you back. We'll talk. But I think it's just that communication and just not feeling like having that person feel like, okay, you got to do all this. I'm not going to check on you. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Okay, if you did this, text my phone and say, hey, I finished this. And, I might not text you back and say, I'm looking at it right now, but I will let you know I got it. Okay, this is what you need to do now. And it's just that communication. I feel like a lack of communication, and as a client, sometimes they feel like, okay, they don't care about what I have going on. And it's just letting them know that it's not that I don't care about what you got going on, but you're not my only person. So if you call me right now, if I can't answer the phone right now, I will call you back. And if I don't call you back, you can call me, text me. I will call you back. It's just keeping that communication with your client, and just not like making them feel like they're the only person in the world, but just making them comfortable and making them feel like, okay, I got you, but you have to have you also.
Can't show up more for you than you show up for yourself.
And one of the things I think you're talking about too, Gretchen, is you're talking about some really basic respect. You want to feel respected. You want to feel respected. You want to feel that someone is helping you to understand something you don't know anything about. Don't just think, well, you don't know what's going on. Well, tell me what's going on. This is your first experience with defects, right? You didn't know. It's good to understand those basic things, and those communication skills are really key, I think, to a client feeling respected, which is not what you feel when you're sitting on that side of the desk, right? Respect isn't something you've felt maybe in a long time. So for someone to kind of hear your side of the story and understand that, and to understand the case manager, what is your job? What brought you to this work? That's something kind of, I think maybe we overlook the importance of. You want to know if is she or he a mom or dad too? Do you have any way to relate to where I'm at?
Right.
And I think those are, you're given a good class.
Understanding that these people are human too. They are frustrated. You came in at a weak moment in their life and they're vulnerable. So yes, they are going to be defensive, because we all have those moments when we just need somebody to help us, but we don't necessarily want to ask for help because we feel like we can do it on our own. But understanding that they are still human with emotions and feelings just the same as you, and they get frustrated and overwhelmed, you're able to meet at a human level as opposed to a client case manager. We're able to have not a personal relationship, but a more intimate relationship.
So let's go to this part of. Can you share with the audience where were you when you came? What did this relationship do on your side in terms of?
I had just moved from New York to Georgia. I didn't know why I was actually in Georgia. I was previously doing social work in New York, but here in Georgia was a totally different atmosphere, totally different climate. The culture was totally different. People were totally different. Just the way Georgia as a state child welfare was totally different. So learning all of that, I felt very much out of place and out of my element. I did not fully understand the drug of choice that plagued Georgia and Hall County and more of the rural areas, which was meth. I didn't have that exposure living in the inner city. Working in the inner city, we didn't deal with meth. That wasn't a popular drug. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm dealing with. So learning that, getting comfortable with that was something that I was doing, how to relate to the people, because we live totally different life. I'm from up north, they're from the south. What they consider rude is not necessarily what I consider rude. They were more friendly and personable. I had to get used to and adjusted to all of that. So with meeting Gretchen, I was able to feel that, whether she knew this in the moment or not, that, okay, I do have a purpose. I can make an impact. I can relate to people and be effective in the same way as I was used to. I can still do that here. I don't feel as out of touch. Although I don't know everything, basic principles will still resonate with the people that I'm working with here.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what the importance of connecting a person's story with their personal story is to doing this work?
Well, if you don't know where this person, client, parent, family member, whomever you're dealing with, what their vision is for their self, how could you tell them what they should be doing in their life? You don't know them as a whole, where they have been, where they're trying to go. They're not going to buy into what you're telling them to do. They're only going to check boxes. And then as soon as you're out of the picture, go back to whatever it is they want to do. But if you sit down and learn what it is that they want for their life, they'll be more invested into an actual change as opposed to just a get through. Get through, check off your boxes. They're like, okay, let me try to do something different because you're helping me achieve what I feel like I need in my life, not you telling me what my life needs. How you going to tell me how to run my life? I don't want to tell you how to run your life no more than I want anybody else telling me that. So giving you that same respect, we're able to meet at some type of mutual level where I'm respecting you and your vision. Your vision may need some adjusting, but we can talk about how about doing it this way so you can still get your outcome, but your direction is needed to be guided a little bit different. But allowing them a voice in their own story is something that I feel like a lot of people don't feel like they have. And that's where you get that resistance and anger.
You said something earlier. You're the woman of quotes. You said, I can't show up more for your story than you.
Right.
So can you share what that means in relation to your relationship, your unique relationship with Gretchen?
So with Gretchen, of course, I have my expectations for her. And when challenges or barriers will come up and she would come to me with, this is the problem. I don't want to do it. I can't do it. Whatever the excuse was as to why she couldn't get it done. Okay, let's break this down to just facts. Get out your feelings. What is the actual issue that is stopping you from completing this task? So if I do A, B, and C, and I'm leaving you with just D, why can't you do it now? Other than you continuing to tell me you just don't want to do it. Because now you have no more barriers. Now it's just a personal choice. Now I can't continue to show up for you and remove all of the barriers for you and put in more effort than you're even willing to give to yourself. Like there was a court date that Gretchen was very nervous about that she had to go to. She was very much considering not even going, which would have been very detrimental to her freedom. So we talked about it and it was like, okay, why can't you go? So if I rearrange my schedule to go with you, now why can't you go? So if I'm rearranging my schedule, how come you can't rearrange your schedule for you if I can rearrange my schedule for you? So now it's taking the burden off of these outside elements that you were leaning on as justification and putting it on you and making personal choices for you Now we get down to, you don't have any more reasons why you can't. Because I've taken that burden off of you. So the only thing comes down to is, do you want this enough for you? And I can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself, because I can't do it for you. You have to walk through this. I can walk with you, but I can't walk for you.
Gretchen, I'm just interested in your response to that in terms of your relationship with Elizabeth.
When you present it like that to her, she can't say no, because I'm like, I removed all the barriers. So what's the issue now other than you just not wanting to do it?
So that quote that we took from Elizabeth, which was, I can't show up more for your story than you. I know we've only talked for a little while, but it appears to me that you showed up for your story. You're trying to complete your story, right?
I am.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
About completing my story, like where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently graduated family treatment court, drug court. That's something that I joined in the program. I visioned graduating, but actually being in the program, I never saw myself graduating. I remember it was so many times at court where I would tell Elizabeth that, okay, I'm just about to tell this judge, like, just send me to prison. What would happen with my kids? Where would they be? Let me make that plan. And when I come home, I'll work on that. And it's so many times that she talked me out of that. And I am so thankful for that. But I just recently graduated family treatment court. I had 6 felonies that I don't have on my background. I don't have a background. I have a full-time job that I work Monday through Thursday with great benefits, 401k. I just recently moved into a new 3-bedroom house. I am actively looking for a new car right now, but I do have a car that I pay cash for. I have all my children. They all go to school. They play basketball. My daughter is in daycare. I feel like I'm just at a good place in my life, and I feel like if I never would have met Elizabeth, I don't feel like I would be right here right now to actually like even see that journey, because I visioned it, but I never saw it. And I feel like she helped me get to where I need to be, and still help me to this day. Will tell me if I'm wrong, will tell me if I'm right. Is my life 100% perfect? No. Do I still make mistakes? Absolutely. But I am so thankful to have that person that I can call and will tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm right, and will just continue to help me get where I'm trying to go.
That's amazing. So recently, when you did come through treatment court, one of the ways this story came to us was that you, at your graduation, there was some story there that at graduation,
MRT phase up when you talked about you trading places with me. Judge Toller shared this story with the panel team.
Oh.
Yeah. That's how
that?
this all came, your MRT.
What?
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
So can you tell us
listen.
about that MRT? I don't know tell me what MRT is.
It's it was a moral recognition class. And I had to take the class. I had already took the class. And I had to take the class again. And again, Elizabeth was like, just do the class. Because I was like, I cannot with this class. Like, this lady is difficult. And I'm not doing this class. As a matter of fact, they can kick me out because I'm not doing this class. And she was like, yes, you are. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the class. And when I actually, did the class, because I was angry about doing the class. And when I actually, I was like, okay, I'm going to let this class help me. So I actually, did the class, and I put a lot of effort into doing the class this time. Because I'm like, whatever they say I'm supposed to get out this class, I did not get that out the class the first time.
She was
but I
checking
want to try.
boxes.
I want to try to get that ease because I feel like I'm like a little background about me is that I'm an angry person on the inside, and I don't know where that anger comes from. So I feel like if I do this class, I'm going to get to the moral of why I'm so angry and so impulsive sometimes. So I did the class, and it was a lesson about trading places. So I sat and I prayed about it. And I was like, I think last time I put trading places with like Beyonce or somebody that I've never saw. I don't know nothing about them. I'm like, who is a person that I know that I would trade places with right now? So I prayed about it. And Elizabeth came in my dream. So the next day I woke up and I wrote her on the paper. And it asked to list like 4 reasons why you would trade places with this person. So I'm like, why would I trade places with Elizabeth? Oh, I wouldn't trade places with Elizabeth. And then I'm like, yes, I would. And the 4 reasons that I chose her was something that I valued about her that she didn't know I valued about her. I didn't even know that they knew I had did this in class because it's supposed to be like a closed class.
Yeah, she didn't tell me. Usually she calls me and says, this is my homework. Let me tell you what I did. Let me read it to you. Make sure it's good. She didn't tell me until after the fact that she did it.
Do you remember what the 4 things were?
It was a God-fearing, strong, a caring person, and what was it was the last thing was kind of about her moving from New York without like a vision. So it was a like strong, like I put strong, and I had to like explain to the class why I picked 4 of them, and I had to explain it to the class without like really going into depth about her personal, like what conversations that we've had, because she does work with the program. So I didn't want to like give no one else in the class like a different look on her. So I did it as of without like mentioning a name, but kind of mentioning a name. And I gave like an introduction to how this lady moved from New York with her kids, with no vision about being in Georgia, no family or nothing. And that was like real, like significant to me. And I valued it because when I see her, you don't see her struggle, but it had to be a struggle. And God-fearing is because I feel like she just walked with like this, like she's real confident. She's very like stern on what she say. You can't really like make her think a different way, and just like she's just brilliant. Like I just liked everything about her, and I like the work that she does. Like I like working with people, so I like the work that she does, and everything about her I valued. And I don't think she knew I valued it, but I did.
And she does now.
Right, listening to her after the fact, I was like, you were listening. Because you know how you talk to people all the time and you understand they get it, but you don't know how much they actually get it. And then one day she had written me this long thank you card, and she just came up to me. She was like, here, and just walked away. And I'm like, what is this? But the words, how she expressed how thankful and appreciative she was of our relationship and the time and attention that I did give to her, I was thankful for it because it did make me, not that I felt my time with her was in vain, but it gave me a different level of appreciation that she had, whereas like she does get it. So I don't mind putting the time in because I know it's making a difference for her in the long run, because she doesn't always express how she feels in the moment or that you're actually helping her. She's very guarded in times. So just to see that different side of her, I was like, okay, now it makes me want to continue to show up and continue to make her see the best version of herself and help her in whichever way I can to be the person that I know she can be, because she is her biggest critic and she will self-sabotage if she's given the space and opportunity. But she has so much potential, so much that she can actually do, and other people can learn and benefit from her story, her testimony, and just her giving heart. Where if I can help her, support her to be that best person, then I feel like my job with touching people's life and making a difference in however I can has been fulfilled.
So good. I'm just taking a moment. I'm breathing it in. I don't know if there's much more we need, really. You guys, this was fantastic. I did want to ask Gretchen, I've loved getting to know your part of the story and how really intricately kind of entwined you guys are in a really unique kind of relationship. It's very evident to me that you both have gotten so much from each other in this journey. And I know that Elizabeth told us about you too, Gretchen, that you really feel now that you're in this place, you so beautifully told where you are now, all these beautiful, wonderful accomplishments and just living your best life. She mentioned that you love to advocate for others too. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are in that journey?
Where I'm at right now is, I guess, just like staying connected with the girls that's still in the program. Even though I've graduated, just being that listening ear for them. Even when they call me and tell me about situations that's going on, and just being able to tell them, even though we don't like doing certain things, it's like best, and just continuing to motivate them and being that positive person that that people will go out their way to call you or write you on Facebook, and just responding to them and just being able to listen to them. I know how it felt to have somebody listen to me and tell me what I need to do that's right, and just being that friend that doesn't just always agree with everything that someone says, and being able to point out their wrongs and tell them the right thing to do is I feel like that's a blessing to be able to have, where people actually take their time to find you and write you and tell you the situations that's going on with them, and to know and trust you enough to know that you're going to lead them into the right way versus crashing them into a wall. And that's weird because I will crash myself into a wall before I crash somebody else into a wall. And just having that respect, even at graduation, the things that people said, and just doing it with nothing in return is even more beautiful than anything else. And I just love it. I just love being able to be that person that I know that if someone's going through something, they're going to call me, and I can be that person to make them feel like everything is going to be okay. And that's where I'm at right now, and just continuing to just be that positive person, even in a negative situation. And I just try to always be positive about the situation. And I'm not always like that with myself, but with other people, I they look at me like I'm like their positive like angel or something. So I really like it, just being able to advocate and just be there for other people and stuff.
But why don't you tell a little bit about that group you started in high school? Because you were a young mom, you started a club for young moms.
Oh yeah. In high school, I had a baby. I was a straight A student. Had no idea what I was going to do with the baby. So I began searching for like resources and stuff. I actually have a paper it's still actually in the paper, an article in the paper. But I started searching for like teen, like parenting classes and stuff. And I saw that it was like parenting classes like on the outer skirts of Gwinnett area, but it was never none where I lived in Beaufort. And I know that I wasn't the first teen mom in Beaufort, but I was the first teen mom that was looking to see how to take care of a baby because I did not know how to hold a baby. So I needed someone to show me how to be a parent. So within doing like researches and working with the health department, I was able to start a teen mops class for teen mothers of like it was called Teen Mothers of Preschoolers, but it was just teen parenting. And we would meet once a week and we would like get together, we would eat, and it would just be like different people would come in and talk to us about like parenting, doing like how to raise a child, and their experience from being a teen parent and how they made it. And it actually grew really big. And then I guess like the grants from the state had stopped or something. But I just started like, it just came from me researching and then just putting the word out and knowing that it was other teen parents who was probably scared to ask for help that just lingered alone. And I was able to have like, it was a lot of people from all different areas.
So you did that. That was way before this other part of your journey started?
That was when she was in high school.
You got a whole lot more work to do.
Yes.
Obviously, that's in you. It was in you from the start, it sounds. I want to ask you, this is something which I'm sure you see. I don't want to try to point out just the obvious, but it was interesting listening to you describing your relationship with these girls. It was like listening to Elizabeth describe her relationship with you. And what an amazing, like really beautiful thing. The image that I had was when we started, we talked about the other side of the desk, which is where you were. And by her meeting you where you were, she brought you to a place where now you're on this side of the desk and there's other people who you're reaching out on the other side of the desk, right?
It is.
It's a perfect and beautiful example that none of us stays where we were at the beginning of our story. We move to a different place, but when there are these relationships that are genuine and that we are listened to and our stories are given room to grow, that we move to these other places.
You can pay it forward because now you can extend somebody the same courtesy that you received without wanting and needing anything in return because somebody did it for you. So now you can go be in a position to do it for somebody else. And that should be how it continues. Like, I never wanted anything for Gretchen. What I did for Gretchen, I did for Gretchen because I wanted to see her succeed. I wanted to see her win. I never said, well, I'll do this if you do that. And if it's not benefiting me, then I'm not going to do it. Even when it did not even benefit me at all, I was like, what is it you need? Let me see how I can help you. Now, doing that for her, she's now in a position as a graduate where she can be that person for somebody else. And then that next person that she makes a difference to can now be in a position where they can do that for somebody else and so forth. But if you've never had those opportunities where you have positive things happen to you, how can you know to give that to somebody else?
Gretchen, did you have something else you want to say? I saw you were getting a little bit emotional there for a second.
I'm a real emotional person. I'm a crybaby.
That's okay.
But it's just like, it's just sitting and thinking about, like how it is a chain reaction. And just sitting and realizing that sometimes, like, just being an ear for someone else and just being there for someone else, you never know how appreciative it is. And that's like, even at my graduation, I like, some of them girls, I remembered talking to them and just listening to them and just telling them, but I never knew it was so genuine. Like, I never knew they appreciated it so much until I was actually graduating and they told me, because I just did it because that's who I am. I didn't do it expecting anything back from it, or like you owe me, or it just was just straight from the heart. It's some things you just do from the heart.
I think we've done our job here. I think you guys are the best guinea pigs I could possibly imagine having. This is not going to go on tape, on record, just so you know. I'm just still talking in our buttery tone while we're here. That was beautiful. I don't. My little producer here. If you have any, do we have any gaps? Do we have anything we missed? Do we have anything we need to?
I think you're good.
Y'all have anything else? Any other shout outs? Any other words to the people out there who are doing this work? To the moms that might be on the other end? One question I was going to ask: if you had, I said this at some point, and I think I kind of got off track. If you had an audience of moms, what do you want them to know that maybe they don't know when they first, let's say they have their first encounter with defects, or maybe they've had their 10th encounter? What do you want them to be hopeful about?
It's always a light at the end of the tunnel. It's crazy. I just wrote a quote on Facebook that I wrote myself yesterday, and it said, "I watched my life crumble and walked in shame. This mission is personal. It's between me, myself, and I."
See, she got that from you too. The quotes, these one-liners.
She was good.
Okay, I'm at a loss, which doesn't happen as I'm not sure how to end this. I might have to go back and let me read my